Hey, what's going on everybody? My name is Monetary, coach of the Tampa Bay Luxrays, and today I'm bringing you guys our GBA Season 7 Week 10 team builder for the Free State Torracats, coached by DuncanKneeDeep. Of course, as always, his YouTube link will be in the description below if you've not done so already. This week is very, very important for us, as is every week. Every week is important, but we are really, really close to clinching playoffs. However, there are a few people on our tail. Lars is directly behind us, and actually Duncan, if he is able to defeat us, also has a chance to possibly pass us. Us beating him here, I believe, will make it so that he can not catch me, but once again, he has the potential to catch me, and Lars has the potential to catch me, so this is going to be a very important game, as well as the next two, if we have not clinched already. So, without further ado, let's just get into Duncan's roster that he has drafted for this season. We have Weavile, which is going to be his Z-move user. We have Alolan Marowak, Landorus Incarnate, that is Sandforce Landorus Incarnate, not Sheer Force, Keldeo, Flygon, Mandibuzz, Metagross, Granbull, Araquanid, Torkoal, and Venusaur. So he's got some threats on there. Definitely a few scary things. Weavile is always difficult to deal with. Alolan Marowak is very difficult to switch into. Same thing with Landorus Incarnate. Possible Scarfers like Keldeo and Flygon. He's got some solid bulk in Mandibuzz, Granbull, even like Araquanid, Torkoal, Venusaur. Got some good old bulky offense going on there. However, I believe I've built a team of 6 that will be able to take on whatever team of 6 he decides to bring. So without further ado, let's get into the team. We're going to start off relatively simple. Physically defensive man time we have here. This is very important in order to deal with things such as possibly the Weavile, the Alolan Marowak, even though I don't necessarily want to switch in on those hits because they hit very hard, and if he's like a banded Weavile, he does 2 a KO me. That can be kind of annoying. Even Life Orb, I believe, knockoff plus Ice will crash into a KO me. If he is knocking off the item. It still is very useful for his team. I can kind of deal with it. He can't Okome with Weavile, I can Scald it, possibly get a burn on it. With Alolan Marowak, I outspeed it unless he's running a lot of speed investment, and I can hit him with a Scald, and he cannot Okome, which is very nice. I can deal with most forms of Landorus. He's going to have to be running something along the lines of Stone Edge in order to kill me, which is going to be very nice because Stone Edge is not very accurate, and it forces him to run Mixed, which is very good. I wall Keldeo unless he's running HP Electric, and even then he's not going to be able to knock me out with that, and we do have Air Slash to hit that and possibly beat like a Subcom Mindset, which is very nice. We can deal with most forms of Flygon. +1 Stone Edge does not knock me out. If he has Thunder Punch, that can be a bit of an issue, but we'll have to scout for that. I can deal with the Mandibuzz relatively well. He could have Taunt, but I can still possibly burn it with Scald, and if he does not have Taunt, I can hit him with a Toxic and whittle him down, which is going to be very useful. Metagross can kind of hurt me if he's banded, and if he is not banded, he can still have access to Thunder Punch and knock me out, which is going to be kind of annoying. Granbull, same thing, can run Thunder Punch or Stone Edge if it wants to, but I outspeed it, can Scald it, possibly burn it and whatnot. I hard wall the Araquanid, which is really nice. I can deal with the Torkoal relatively well, and then I don't necessarily deal with the Venusaur if it's very offensive. Like if it's offensive in the sun with like Life Orb, Solar Beam, especially if it's growth, then I don't want to stay in versus it, but if it is offensive without recovery, I can at least get some damage off onto it with some Air Slash. If it's more of a defensive variant, I still will be able to get some chip damage off with Air Slash, and he won't be able to do too much to me, and I can deal with it in other ways. So that's our man time. Relatively standard. It's kind of just there to wall a good portion of his team. It's a great check to Keldeo, decent check to Weavile, decent check to the Marowak, good check to the Landorus. It does have the potential to wall a good majority of his team, and he doesn't have great Scald switch-ins. Like, his best Scald switch-in is going to be his Araquanid, which doesn't want to take Air Slash and doesn't touch me, as well as Venusaur, which I have Air Slash for. So, hopefully this Mantine will be able to put in a decent amount of work. Next up, we are going to move on to our Florges. We are bringing largely physically defensive Florges with a little bit of speed. That much speed is just so that I can outspeed Marowak if he decides to run some speed onto that, which is going to be nice. I also outspeed an uninvested Mandibuzz, which is going to be very useful. Same thing, uninvested Venusaur, though I can't really hit Venusaur very hard. Physically defensive so that I can take on, once again, things like the Weavile as best as possible, the Flygon as best as possible, the Granbull. I still take on the Torkoal relatively well, and things like that. Moonblast Hidden Power Ground is pretty much all the coverage that I need for his team. I was originally going to run Calm Mind with this thing, but I actually really like the Wish support to my team, because I do have some bulky things on this team. I do have a relatively bulky team this week, and it's going to be very useful to Wish Pass into things like Jirachi, as well as Bisharp and Mantine, and even my Rhydon if I'm able to. Speaking of which, I don't think I've mentioned this, but it's been mentioned on the GBA channel. I dropped Alolan Golem to pick up Rhydon. I didn't really see the use in keeping Alolan Golem anymore. I didn't see any matchups where I wanted it, and Rhydon is still a very good Pokemon, and I decided that it would be a little bit more useful than Golem in future weeks, so I decided to pick that up. We'll get into the Rhydon a little bit later. Regardless, Moonblast HP Ground hits pretty much the entirety of his team super effectively or neutrally, which is really, really nice. This is actually, even though I'm running full bulk, this is actually a decently good offensive threat to his team. The only thing that immediately threatens it is Metagross and Venusaur, which is very nice. Those are two pretty big threats to my team. Still very useful for me, which is nice. Wish Protect, once again, I can pass wishes to things, I can keep this thing healthy. Once again, very standard. I don't need to go over this thing too much more in detail. It's standard, it's going to Wish Pass to my team, it can heal itself, and I can fire off some Moonblasts relatively freely, and then things I can't hit with Moonblast very hard, I do have HP Ground. So I can hit things like the Marowak, things like the Metagross, as well as things like the Torkoal. So that's our Florges. Now we're getting into more of the offensive Pokemon on our team, and we are going to start off with our Bisharp. So, I wanted Rocks versus this team, but I wasn't running him on Jirachi and I wasn't running him on Rhydon, and you'll see why I'm not doing that in a bit. But I wanted Rocks on the team and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to use them on, and I actually decided to run them on Bisharp because what's really nice is I can set them up versus Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is a good switch into Bisharp, but he cannot defog versus me, which is really nice, because if he defogs versus me, he's giving me a Defiant boost, meaning that I will be at +2 and I'll be able to do a ton of damage to his team. A +2 Bisharp is very, very threatening for his team. He has the Mandibuzz that can take one hit from it, he has the Torkoal that can take a +2 hit from it, maybe a defensive Venusaur, a Keldeo as well, but other than that, Knockoff, Iron Head, and Sucker Punch are just really scary versus his team. I did want to run Swords Dance this week, but A, I needed Stealth Rock, and B, there isn't too much that I actually freely set up versus. Like, Weavile can have Low Kick to hit me, Marowak has Flare Blitz to kill me, Landorus has Earth Power, Keldeo obviously kills me, Flygon, you get the point. Even if I set up a Swords Dance in front of Mandibuzz, he can always just go for a Foul Play. The difference is, with him going for Defog, is that I then have a guaranteed free turn. I can click Swords Dance on the same turn that he clicks Foul Play, and that's not good for me. However, if he clicks Defog, that means that I get an immediate +2, and I at least have the opportunity to go for an attack, and he won't be able to knock me out with one Foul Play because I do resist, which is very nice. Same thing with the Grand Bull. Defiant is very useful for if he brings the Grand Bull, which I suspect he might in order to stop the Zygarde. He'll get the Intimidate off onto my Bisharp, I'll go to +1, and then I have an even more powerful Iron Head to click across his team, which should be able to get a 2 KO onto pretty much anything, which is really nice, except for maybe the Torkoal or maybe the Keldeo. But even Torkoal, I believe, gets 2 KO'd after Rock, same thing with the Mandibuzz, which is really nice. This is a very big threat versus this team. We're running Jolly Max Speed so that we can speed tie with a potential Jolly Max Speed Metagross. I don't want to risk 50-50s versus that thing. If it's Jolly Max Speed, I might be able to just go for Knockoff. He might also just pull a switch, expecting me to go for Sucker Punch, and I'll be able to knock off something's item, get a lot of damage on whatever wants to come in, which is really nice. So yeah, this is Bisharp. It's a very good Pokemon versus this team. Priority Sucker Punch is very useful to pick off weakened Landorus, to possibly pick off a weakened Weavile, which is nice, to pick off maybe an offensive Venusaur, to pick off maybe a Flygon, something like that. Sucker Punch, very useful. Hopefully Bisharp will be able to put in a decent amount of work versus his team. But the next set that we are going to get into is going to be our Greninja. We're running 4 special attacks, Expert Belt Greninja. This much speed will allow me to outspeed everything on his team that I can possibly outspeed. I'll be able to outspeed, I believe the fastest thing on his team is Keldeo. No, it's Weavile, but I cannot outspeed Weavile, so the next fastest thing is Keldeo. I will be able to outspeed that unless it is Choice Scarf. And what this set allows me to do is hit pretty much the entirety of his team super effectively, except for the Weavile, which I do 2 KO anyway. Surf will be able to 2 KO the Weavile, kills the Marowak, kills the Landorus, have extra sensory to 2 KO the Keldeo, which is nice. Ice Beam to OHKO the Flygon. Ice Beam to 2 KO most Mandibuzz. If he's fully special defensive, I might not be able to, but I can knock out the Metagross depending on its item. Grand Bull's the only Pokemon I may not be able to 2 KO along with Araquanid, just because they have very good Spadef. Because Grand Bull could be Spadef, and Araquanid has very good natural Spadef. But I'll still be able to get some chip damage off onto them. 5 rocks up, then Araquanid's not going to want to switch in on Dark Pulse, which is very nice, and it doesn't have natural recovery, which is good. Grand Bull, same thing, doesn't really want to switch in on special attacks, it's more of a physical tank, which is great. Venusaur I do hit super effectively with Ice Beam as well as extra sensory. Ice Beam obviously the stronger of those two. If he's defensive, he'll be able to take it relatively well. If he's offensive, however, he is not, and if he is not in the sun, I'll be able to knock it out after a little bit of prior damage, which is really nice. Greninja is just a fast Pokemon that is able to deal with his team very well. Obviously, he could have Scarfers that could check me, like Scarf Keldeo, as well as maybe like a Scarf Landorus or something along those lines. But both of those are checked nicely by my Mantine, which is very, very useful. So Greninja, I'm hoping to put in a lot of work this game. It outspeeds the good majority of his team. As soon as I get rid of the Weavile, I outspeed everything, and hopefully I'll be able to pick off things that are weakened, as well as maybe sweep late game if it comes down to that. But that is our Greninja. Next up, we are going to move on to a very important part of our team, and that is going to be our Jirachi. So, we are running pretty much max specially defensive Jirachi. If you look at the team that I've brought, I am very weak to an offensive Venusaur in the sun. So I decided to bring a specially defensive Jirachi to kind of deal with that. He could be running 3 attacks growth. That's definitely something I could see coming. He's brought it before. After I scouted him out a little bit, he could definitely be doing that. It hurts my team quite a bit. It deals with my wall core well, being Florges, Rhydon. It even deals with Mantine relatively well because +2 Giga Drain hurts quite a bit. So we're running fully specially defensive. What this allows me to do is have nearly a 100% chance to live a +2 modest Life Orb Hidden Power Fire in the sun from Venusaur, so even if it sets up a growth, I should be okay, and I can hit it very hard with the Zen Headbutt. Even if I'm not able to knock it out, like suppose it's at full health, Zen Headbutt damage will guaranteed put it in range of Sucker Punch for my Bisharp, which is very nice. So that's going to be extremely important because Venusaur is probably the biggest threat to my team if he does decide to bring the Sun offense. If not, then Weavile's going to be a very big threat. Weavile's a very big threat regardless. But once again, this will allow me to take a Hidden Power Fire from Venusaur at +2, which is very nice, assuming that I'm at full health, which is very good. That's a big reason why we have Wish on Florges, so I can keep this thing healthy. Iron Head, Zen Headbutt, U-Turn, very important versus this team as well. Iron Head, relatively spammable, flinches things, relatively standard. Toxic is very important to hit things such as the Araquanid, which I don't hit very, very hard. To hit the Torkoal on switch-in, which I can't hit very hard. Hit the Mandibuzz, which I don't hit very hard, and things like that. I have U-Turn in order to gain myself some initiative. Like, suppose I have Rocks up and I expect his Torkoal to want to come in, I can click U-Turn, get Rocks damage onto it, and gain initiative into something like my Greninja in order to deal with it, or even my Rhydon to hit it with an Earthquake or a Stone Edge. That's going to be very, very useful for me. Zen Headbutt, I'm running Zen Headbutt over Heart Stamp, just because if he's a max HP Venusaur, Heart Stamp is not going to be able to 2 KO him. Obviously, there's a better chance for me to flinch, but Zen Headbutt has a decent chance to flinch anyway, and I will be able to guarantee to 2 KO him, which is always a little bit more important. I would much rather have the guaranteed damage than a chance to flinch, which is very useful. And yeah, relatively standard set, I guess. Also, we have the Colbur Berry on there just because Weavile can be a bit of a problem. He can hit me with a knockoff or a pursuit, I'll take it relatively well, and then I can just knock him out with the Iron Head or hit him very hard with the U-Turn. Relatively self-explanatory there. I can also take a hit from Mandibuzz a little bit better, not that it matters, because I take a hit from Mandibuzz relatively well anyway. Also, if he is more of a defensive Venusaur and he has knockoff, I'll take that even better from my Jirachi, or if he's like physically offensive or something like that, I can take that relatively well. But regardless, that's our Jirachi. Biggest thing that this thing has to do for my team is just deal with that Venusaur, because that Venusaur can be a very big problem, and I need this thing in order to take it on. So that's going to be our Jirachi. Next up, I am excited to reveal to you our Rhydon. So we are bringing a Rock Polish Rhydon this week. By the way, the nickname is there because I'm a 4-year-old, but regardless, the moveset: Earthquake, Stone Edge, Ice Punch, and Rock Polish. When you look at Duncan's team, this puts in a ton of work versus it. At +2, at +2 speed, I outspeed the Weavile, which is very nice. I outspeed everything on his team at +2, unless he is running a Scarfer, which I do have to be careful of, because a lot of his Scarfers outspeed me even if I am at +2, but if he doesn't have Scarfers, at +2 I outspeed everything. Stone Edge will be able to knock out the Weavile. Earthquake will be able to knock it out after Rocks, which is very nice. Earthquake knocks out the Alolan Marowak. Ice Punch knocks out Landorus if it's not Yachi Berry. Keldeo, I can 2 KO, so I need some damage on that in order to knock it out prior to. Ice Punch can knock out the Flygon unless he's running a lot of physical defense, which is really nice. Stone Edge easily 2 KOs the Mandibuzz, which is great, and he can't really do too much back to me. Earthquake will either be 2 KO or 1 KO on the Metagross, depending on his investment, depending on maybe he shook a berry or something like that. I do have to weaken the Granbull, but once again, Granbull doesn't do too much damage back to me. Obviously, he intimidates me, but I'm still getting chip damage off onto him that he cannot recover because he doesn't have recovery on it. I can OHKO the Araquanid, unless he's running a lot of speed on Araquanid, which I don't see him doing. I'll be able to knock that out with Stone Edge. Torkoal, I believe I'll be able to knock out after Rocks. Possibly not, but after a little bit of damage, I will be able to hit and knock out the Torkoal, and then I need a little bit of damage off onto Venusaur. Obviously, once again, have to be careful of Venusaur in the sun. If I get up 2 Rock Polishes, I should be able to outspeed that Venusaur, but regardless, that is our Rhydon. It can put in a lot of work versus his team. It does set up a Rock Polish versus things like Mandibuzz. It can even set one up versus Flygon, which is really nice. I take any hit from Flygon, assuming it's not like a Life Orb Earth Power, which is very, very nice. I can possibly set it up versus Marowak, depending on whether or not he has Will-O-Wisp. And I can actually, I don't want to, but I can potentially set one up versus Weavile just because of Rhydon's natural bulk, which is really nice. So hopefully I will be able to set up a Rock Polish and possibly sweep through his team, which is going to be really nice. And if I can't sweep through his team, then maybe I'll be able to just put a lot of pressure on him and make the game a lot easier for me. Regardless, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said, check out Duncan in the description below, and I hope you're looking forward to the game, and I'll see you there.